Good evening. I call this regular meeting of the Verona Township Council to order on Monday, the 26th of September at 7:00 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please read the Open Public Meetings Act compliance statement?
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied with respect to this meeting of the Township Council. The meeting time and date were included in the public meeting notice along with the public internet link and telephone call-in information. Said notice and the meeting agenda was posted in the municipal building and sent to the official newspapers of the township, the Verona City Grove Times, and the Star Ledger, at least 48 hours preceding the start time of this meeting. The agenda and public handouts can be viewed online at veronanj.org/council meetings. A public comment period will be held in the order it's listed on the meeting agenda, and instructions on how to comment will be provided at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland? Here. Councilwoman McGrath? Here. Councilman Roman?
Here.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy?
Here.
Mayor Pamboro?
Here.
Mayor also present today is Township Attorney Brian Aloya, Township Manager Joseph Yarko, myself, Municipal Clerk Jennifer Kearney.
Thank you. Everyone, please stand for further readings. Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the mayor's report tonight, Mr. Coltre is not here, he is on vacation, so we're going to move right to our proclamation recognizing the anniversary of the Verona Public Library's building where it stands now, which as an historian is a very big thing for me, right? We love libraries. We do have a proclamation, which I'm going to read at this time, and we have representatives from the library with us who will be able to stand and receive the proclamation when we're done. Thank you guys for coming tonight. The proclamation reads, whereas public libraries are central to the life activities of our communities, are important spaces in which public culture is constructed and lived, improving the quality of life by providing all-inclusive, safe, and friendly environments for everyone. And whereas no institution has made a greater contribution to our democratic society than the library by preserving our history and providing collections of photographs, maps, manuscripts, and other historical artifacts that would otherwise be unavailable to the public. And whereas libraries are places of opportunity, providing everyone of all ages and backgrounds free access to knowledge and information that support individual achievement, growth, and personal fulfillment, and provides access to educational news and historical resources, keeping the public informed with facts rather than confused with fictional information. And whereas in November 1911, the residents of Verona voted to establish a free public library, and whereas the established trustees obtained a grant for $11,000 from the Carnegie Foundation in 1996 to build a free public library, and whereas on September 7th, 1923, the new Verona Public Library was dedicated and open to the public, and whereas the Verona Public Library's Board of Trustees' vision for the library is to be an essential community resource and build community physically and virtually by bringing people of all ages and cultures together to read, learn, and engage with each other. And whereas the Verona Public Library's Board of Trustees mission statement is that the library is the community center for civic engagement, promotes literacy, advances knowledge, and enhances the quality of life for our community. And whereas the Verona Public Library is committed to sustaining our cherished public library for generations to come, continue to be good stewards of one of Verona's most important resources, continue to invest in the community and its successes, committed to the library's vision and mission, and eager to lead. And whereas this year, the Verona Public Library celebrates its 100th anniversary, and will commemorate this occasion hosting a gala event, 100 Years of Carnegie, on October 12th, 2023 at 7:00 p.m. in the Verona Public Library. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Dr. Christopher Tamboro, Mayor of the Township of Verona, recognizes the rich history and enduring contributions of the Verona Public Library. It is indeed an honor to pay tribute to this monumental occasion. Be it further proclaimed that I, along with my fellow council members, encourage all residents to join us in advocating to support our beloved public library and all public libraries for the essential services and programs they provide. The witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the official seal of the Township of Verona, New Jersey, to be affixed this 26th day of September in the year 2023. And just a couple notes there. The township has invested a great deal in maintaining the library in the spirit that the Carnegie Foundation originally anticipated these grants going in, and it's great to see. And for the public, the actual pronunciation of the name is Carnegie, just before anybody goes on Facebook and thinks that it's not. But the other piece of this is we have a tremendous amount of volunteer energy in addition to our staff that goes into the library. So we have our library board, which is appointed by the council. We have our Friends of the Verona Public Library group that raises money, and we have our newer Verona Public Library Foundation. And it really is special to see all different groups providing their individual strengths as far as fundraising and programming and support for the library. It really is a gem in this community. So if you have never been to our library, visit. There's some great spots to enjoy in there, and the staff are very, very helpful. Any other council members want to add anything?
I'll just comment. One of the things I always observe about the library, it's wonderful that I'm very glad to celebrate its history and its anniversary. But as we've watched over the last couple of years, the library has evolved so much, and it does so much with its programming to ensure that it's offering services to be relevant and to be in service to everyone in the community nowadays. And that's what I've really appreciated and enjoyed over the years, is just watching the ideas that come out and all the unique things that the library does for the public. And it's just, as we said, it's just a rich public resource that everyone here should enjoy. I'm very glad that this community has been willing to support this institution the way that we have, that it's 100 years, and I'm certain that its future is only going to grow from here. So congratulations to everybody on this evening. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, if the library board will join us in the center for the photograph.
Hello. How you doing?
How are you?
How are you? How you doing?
Come here. Oh, you come here with me.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Taking this.
You're the mayor.
Yeah, there we go. Taking the picture.
Well, Sarah, I'm so well trained.
You take it.
We all get out of the way.
You can take a picture, Chris, take a picture.
Yeah, but.
Ready? One more. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you.
Thank you for recognizing the library.
And tickets are still available, right, for the Goblin, before everybody leaves? Yes, okay. All right, we'll see everybody there. All right, just a couple other items on the mayor's report for this evening. First of all, I was thrilled, while we're on our book theme, to attend the grand opening of the Collective Bookstore on Bloomfield Avenue. And it's a great little shop. I encourage everybody to stop in. It's conveniently located next to a cafe. And the owners there are really doing a good job bringing some vibrancy to that side of town, which is wonderful to see. The Verona Environmental Commission met last week and had a robust discussion on several items, including junior commissioners, school programming, some service projects, and a conversation about the budget. The VEC will be hosting its fall cleanup on October 21st at the end of Park Place, which goes on to like the HBW property, and signups are available through the VEC website. The planning board will be meeting this Thursday to discuss the resolution to approve the One Sunset Avenue development. So I recommend that any members of the public who wish to make their opinions known on that to attend that meeting. I do want to address the concern that many residents had and reached out about an incident that happened on Floyd Road over the weekend that involved a car theft from a person standing there who ended up by being injured minorly. This is a pretty devastating thing for our town to happen in what is normally a safe community. I appreciate the immediate updates from the police department and their thorough investigation into the matter, and hopefully we'll get more updates soon on that. And I encourage anybody that has any concerns about public safety or sees anything that is suspicious, please reach out to the police department right away. Your call will be taken and the intelligence that you provide will be acted upon. And that goes all the time for sure. And finally, I would like to join the bipartisan effort of politicians to request that Senator Bob Menendez step down after his indictment. Both Republicans and Democrats have called for this after multiple indictments. We require, as municipality, effective ethical leadership, and it is not fitting of New Jersey to be represented by somebody who is not going to be effective because the indictments put before him. So for the good of New Jersey, I call on Senator Menendez to step down. We're reducing the same to writing and sending it to his office as well. And that's my report. Mr. DiArco.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving down to item 13, Everett Field will not be on tonight's agenda. The firm will be in here for the next council meeting, and they need to review with the rec commission also. The light at Pumpkin and Claremont is the developer is in motion with the DOT working on that light, and we've submitted a grant, Safe Routes to Schools, for the police coverage, or else we will not be providing it for free. So that grant application has been submitted. The lead-based paint has hazard inspection. The firms have been reviewed by myself and Tom Jacobs, senior construction official. We do have a firm that's recommended. There is a draft ordinance that's been drafted by the township attorney, modeled off of the requirements under the state, and that's for discussion tonight, and will be on an agenda for introduction at the next meeting. The council still needs to address the special meeting on planners, so we get that in motion. And I'd like to, not least of my agenda, is the introduction of Kevin O'Sullivan to the council and to the public as your new deputy manager, who will be starting October 3rd, month, second Monday is October 2nd. Kevin.
Hi, everyone. I just
Right over here.
hello. That's
Any questions from the council?
Wait till you get We'll have plenty.
Kevin will literally be jumping in because I'm leaving for the ICMA conference, and Kevin will be here starting that week, so there's great coverage.
Well, we won't call you the first hour, Kevin, we promise.
I'll be available.
Councilwoman?
Yes, I had the pleasure of meeting the mayor of North Caldwell over the last few days, and he I was amazed he spoke with me because he is quite sorry to see you go, and he's said only wonderful things about your time in North Caldwell. So
Thank you.
we are really excited to have you join the Verona team, and there is much to do.
I understand. I'm looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. Okay. Anything else, Mr. DR?
There's an item for you tonight. The fire FEMA grant came in and being sorted out today. It's $67,000 grant. We'd like to move that up to council approvals and adoptions tonight that have been prepared. And I'd be happy to grab that $67,000 grant from FEMA for you. And I can also report that your flats of Verona, they have paid their construction inspection fees. There was a review of their contracts and delivered a check for over $100,000 today, and all the fees that were due for the construction project. And unless there's any other items that you'd like to address.
Councilwoman McGrath has one.
Yeah, so on the flats, actually, could we get at some future point what the construction schedule is? So just like what is their rough timeline, you know, weather permitting, obviously, on when they're gonna be hitting certain stages and when they think they're gonna be done.
We'll try and get you a timeline as best as they can have it. There was a slight holdup because when they didn't pay the fees, we held up the contract.
Okay.
But it's back on track and moving, and I'll get some timelines for you. And we're also have our administrative agent and COA preparing information for the public. There's a lot of questions on when applications will be up, when it's gonna be on a website, and Lisa is working on that now.
And then my second question was, so the Everett Field presentation's not happening tonight, it needed to be delayed, is it gonna go to the rec committee first?
Yeah, it's gonna go to the rec committee, and then it'll come over.
Okay, so when is that meeting, in case there's members of the public who are waiting to see, they could go to the rec committee meeting and see it, and participate as members of the public, right? When is that next meeting?
I believe it's October 19th, but I'm confirming, or perhaps the municipal clerk could.
I can confirm.
Cause our next meeting says,
I may have it because I go to them all.
okay,
I have it as is it 17th?
17th?
Tuesdays?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, it's on the 17th.
17th.
so our meeting's on the 16th, are we gonna see this presentation on the 16th, or are we not gonna then see until the 30th?
We'll have it on the 16th, and the rec commission will have it in advance, and I'll ask the staff to get the rec commission comments in advance of the meeting. And then we can always adjust again. It is a draft, it's not a finalized. We don't have input from the council, we don't have input from the public. And I anticipate this, as I said previously, as a 2024 project. So you're in advance for comments from the council, the rec, and the public.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Joe, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Oh, sorry, Councilman.
So I just follow up on the Everett Field discussion, just to be clear and to confirm that. So the discussion at the September 19th meeting of the rec committee was that they were going to receive it. It would be vetted by the council first, and then they were going to have their discussion at their next meeting, which is October 17th. Are we now saying that you're expecting them to produce written responses in advance of that October 17th meeting? Because that may be challenging for resident volunteers to do. So I do think it is still advantageous for them to have the discussion on the 17th, just like it can still be after a council discussion and public posting of it, just like was done with the playground.
There's nothing final on this. We're literally 2 months ahead of the calendar, 2024, when you would be considering it for a capital project.
Do we also have a cost estimate associated with
we
these
do.
design plans?
We do,
Okay.
except for the field house that there isn't an estimate yet. In the field house. And the field house is a basic field house, bathrooms, the kitchen facilities for folks to use, and an announcing booth on the second level. Nothing else.
Is there a playground associated with
That
that?
was one of the recommendations from the architect and the first team that reviewed it. I think that is embodied in the plan. And then there was discussions about multi-use purposes, which is going to be a discussion by rec and council if the land could support multi-use purpose. That's why I moved this thing up way before 2024.
Has
There
that,
needs to be a lot of discussions. There's also discussions on turf field versus real grass fields. So you're really have a lot of discussion both from council, the rec commission, and the public.
just one additional question. So Neglia Engineering is designing this. the turf, the multi-use, these are all considerations, but are they currently embodied in the plan? Or this is just something for further discussion?
It's for further discussion by them. All the drainage and topography was done, the tentative layouts were done. They have some recommendations in there, but you'll see those, but it's not final.
Okay, so drainage and stormwater
That's all
management
been
was
in there,
considered.
yeah.
Excellent, thank you. I look forward to seeing these plans and discussing them with residents.
To council member reports. Deputy Mayor McAvoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be brief. I also would like to congratulate Josh and Lauren at the Collective Bookstore for opening up in that area. The ribbon cutting last week was very well attended. And there's a really, really good buzz around town about this new business. So hopefully people will slow down and look and see what books are in the window when they're driving by there, because that's an area where a lot of people speed. So hopefully it'll calm traffic a little bit. Last Saturday, I did go to the Tesla presentation at the community center. And I have to say, a lot of our police officers were there, fire department, rescue squad. We think of them as horns go off and then they go, they jump in the truck and go to work. But it's all these extra hours of preparation and education that really help the residents of Verona. So I want to thank them for that. The presentation was all about EVs, and we have so many electric vehicles out there now. I was sitting there, I myself drive one, and I was just in awe how they're telling me, like, sometimes the car goes dead. And there was one story about a woman and a child were stuck in a car for 6 hours because they didn't know where the manual release was in the car. So just that education to all of our EMS workers is very beneficial. So I was very happy to see it. Very, very well attended. I don't think they could fit another person in the room. And it was open to other towns around here, and many other towns showed up. So I would like to also thank the Proud family, because they're the ones that initiated this and got it going and set it up. Them and their companion Morris, but Proud Funeral Home really set it up and got it going and did a wonderful job with it. And I'd like to just thank them for that, for helping the Verona residents and making us that much safer. So that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilman Roman.
Thanks very much. The majority of my items are related to new business, but I will also concur with the mayor's remarks regarding Senator Menendez. It is very unfortunate to have to make this sort of statement, but my opinion is that he is not in a position where he can effectively legislate on behalf of the residents of the state of New Jersey. He obviously has a right to defend himself against the charges that have been made, but in the greater good and for the service of the public at whole, I do think it's best that he step aside. So it's very disappointing to see this, but I would agree that that is the best course of action for the state of New Jersey. So I would encourage the same. So thank you very much for making that statement. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Councilman Roman. Councilwoman McGrath.
Thank you. I also went to the bookstore ribbon cutting. What a fantastic business in Verona that's attracting people from multiple communities. It's really going to be a huge asset. And it's really fun to see this business evolve. I cannot wait for Small Business Saturday and the holiday season. I went to the Turtleback Zoo for a new exhibit that was unveiled, and it was in honor of Commissioner Pat Siebold. It's really hard to believe that at one point in the late 90s, Essex County was going to close the zoo. That was a real threat, and Commissioner Siebold really rallied support of her peers to save the zoo and really flip it into the asset that it is today. It was really an honor to be there, to see her being honored with the county executive and many other people from Essex County. So congratulations to her, and I encourage all residents to go to the zoo and check out the new kimono dragon and alligator exhibit in her honor. I went to a traffic and safety committee meeting, my first one. I'm so excited to sit there. Now on that committee, we had an extensive conversation about safety issues on Mount Prospect and Summit. There was a lot of participation from the neighborhood. It was really great to see this committee being utilized for what it's meant to be, which is a sounding board for residents on issues that are happening in their own community. The police chief took copious notes on potential solutions to some danger going in and out of Summit Road, and we look forward to him working with the county on those improvements. And my last thing is that tomorrow we do have a multicultural inclusion and accessibility advisory committee on Zoom at 7 p.m. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Hollins.
Thank you. I want to also recognize the Collective Bookstore. I was unable to be there for the ribbon cutting, but I did attend SCA back to school nights, and there's already been discussion about how the bookstore is actively engaging with the SCAs and in the community. I think that's a wonderful addition, not only as a new business, but to be civic minded and supporting our schools and our students, encouraging reading within the community. So I think that's wonderful. I want to compliment the Verona Library. I'm glad that we started the meeting with the proclamation. And I just want to say that, like, I think it's a tremendous benefit to the community to have such a, I guess, an actively engaged library in our community. They have absolutely grown and moved with the times, and the programming continues to be robust and inclusive. With regard to the rec committee, there was a meeting on September 19th that I attended as liaison. Members of the committee discussed the playground plan and were asked and encouraged to provide any recommendations that they had by the end of that week. I believe that most of the members of the committee were very supportive. Some questions were asked, but not otherwise objections raised. I believe that there was also discussion of capital projects, including other renovations, not limited to Everett Field, but also the pickleball courts. Discussion was had about field utilization within the community, and it was identified that the Board of Education has not been fully responsive, and that the administration would be reaching out to the Board of Ed and the Public Schools Administration to get further insight about the usage of school fields, including but not limited to the high school fields. There was discussion about the various surveys, and I really want to encourage residents and pool members to respond to any of the surveys that are provided. Notably, pool members should have received and are really encouraged to respond to the pool membership survey. Those survey responses will be reviewed by the committee on October 17th, where the committee will also be having a robust discussion about the recreation department's budgeting and capital improvement projects, including but not limited to the pool. Pool income and expenses were identified as a topic for discussion on October 17th. And the basketball program was recently announced. Coaches have been solicited. I look forward to a really successful basketball program, and I hope that we are able to continue coordinating with Rutgers on coaching training and doing the necessary background checks. That concludes my report.
Thank you. All right. As is our custom now, I'm going to call for open public comment on any item that any member of the public wishes to speak about. Madam Clerk, would you please read the public participation statement?
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any matter? If you're attending via Zoom, please raise your virtual hand by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in by phone, press *9. If you are attending in person, you may approach the lectern. When you are recognized, clearly state only your name and township of residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address. However, if you do, please note that these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel, and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. We'll have 4 minutes to address the council, and there'll be no cross dialogue during your speaking. After everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the council or administration may address your comments.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anybody in the room? Come up. You're going to that lectern there. Please just state your name and not your address, just the town which you live.
Is that my phone on?
This one too.
Yep. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Josh. I'm a Verona Township resident.
You just give your last name, Josh.
Oh, sorry. Last name is Axelrod. It's spelled Axelrod.
Thank you.
state my address, but my location where I live is relevant. I recently heard about something called the Essex Highlands Development, which is up near, which is up in the upper section of the forest section. As a Verona resident, concerns that I wanted to raise here, even though this is actually not directly in Verona, there's a lot of impact to Verona, but I to the attention of the council here, and also get a sense of where the council stands on these things. The first issue that I'm very concerned about is flooding. My understanding is that there's going to be work that will affect the headwaters at the Canoe Brook location, as well as others. I know that flooding is an issue right now. Anecdotally speaking, I speak to a lot of people, and if there's anybody in this room who has never had water basement, then you are privileged few. I am not part of that privileged few. I also understand that they are going to remove something in the neighborhood of 6,300 trees. My understanding is this is a full 1/3 trees that are in Central Park. That's a lot of trees. I also know the trees retain a lot of water and help with flooding. This presents a clear and present concern with regards to flooding. Understanding also is that the location itself geographically is located on a very, very steep incline, steeper than what is normally acceptable to build on. Not only is this dangerous, but I also understand that there's something called underwater retention chambers that are supposed to help with flooding. In order to they need to blast, and we have a concern that given the steepness of the geography and the terrain, this also creates a very clear and present danger, not only for the residents of the actual complex that we built, people around it. And then finally, this is where we're connecting to Verona. Where I live, there's a street called Howell, and it's the closest point to this proposed development. And there's from my understanding, a high likelihood that a cut through will be built from this complex through to Howell. And once you make it to Howell, there is a short segment that is directly within Verona. This might feel insignificant. However, as a parent of Verona students, including one high school graduate, one in junior in high school, drive to school every day. I pass by Forest Elementary School, and I know that with such a narrow passage for traffic, that the traffic concerns will ripple outward. My understanding is that they are planning for 1,100 parking spots, and with only 2 egress points, one of them potentially being Howell, you will end up with a significant increase on roads that were never intended to handle this level of traffic. There's a ton of little kids all the time. Traffic has to move really, really slowly in order to get through. We're all concerned about the safety of the elementary school students. And I also want to represent this as a very clear and present danger and concern that directly affects Verona. Speaking for myself, but also anecdotally, I've spoken to a lot of I have in Verona who are also very concerned about this. So just as anecdotal support for people who are not here right now. I'd like to thank the council for their time in listening to my concerns and entering these into the public record. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Anybody else in the say your name and your town, please.
Good evening, it's Jean Stoloff, and I live in Verona. I just wanted to circle back to the council. I had spoke at one of the last meetings, and in my impression, there were 2 action items that the council had acknowledged. One was a consideration to hold a town-wide awareness meeting so that other folks could be aware of what they might do to help oppose the development. And the second action item was for the council to speak in private with the attorney to consider whether or not the council or planning board would attend some of the West Orange meetings related to the development. I also think that this is a large effort impacting our town, and I would like to know how the council organizes itself to address this type of matter. I know it's not interactive now, but I appreciate your comments afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. On Zoom. A couple Zoom participants. Last call. Oh.
There's
All right, we have Mr. Laturza.
Yes, my name is Patrick Laterza. I am also a Verona resident. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I would like to also address my concerns about the construction project on the West Essex Highland. I really don't have much to add, but I also reside in the Forest Avenue section and am concerned for the overall safety of the area. I want to concur with all of Mr. Axelrod's and concerns and Ms. Stoloff's two items that I would love to hear more about at some point in the future.
Thank you. Anybody else zooming in from home? Anybody else in the audience like to speak in the public portion of the meeting? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment at this time. I will start off by reflecting what we did last time Ms. Stoloff spoke, is share my concern with this as well. That it's a terrible place to put a development. I think most people would agree on that. And there are going to be some pretty significant effects to Verona. The unfortunate part about this is that most of the, well, basically all of the policy making for this is happening in West Orange. I know a lot of Verona residents are attending those meetings, participating, as is your right, and you should. Any resident can go to any town and speak on any item. And I think that is absolutely important. As far as the cut through onto Howell Drive, I know that we had discussed ideas in our last meeting about really if Verona had the opportunity to not provide it onto Verona, but there is a part of Howell that exists in West Orange. And of course, the developer in West Orange could bypass us and put something on there, which does create some problems and lead us into an opportunity to negotiate with West Orange, because that is not only are we worried about school children, but there is a steep decline there. People go too fast already. There are major sharp curves and bends, and we've had some pretty significant accidents up there, including a car into a house on the end of Howell Drive from somebody who did not understand the geography of that location. So I agree with you on that. Mr. Aloya was not present in the last meeting where we had discussion, but we had asked Mr. Aloya's partner to relay and get an opinion that can be provided to us in closed session on whether or not, as council members, we should be attending the meetings of other municipalities and speaking, because in case we do have to end up in some kind of legal dispute or something like that, could that cause our ability to do that to be minimized? So Mr. Aloya is here with us tonight, and we will have that conversation in closed session this evening. And unfortunately, we can't share that legal opinion right yet, but if the council determines, we could share that after the conclusion of our meetings. But I agree with you on that piece. As far as holding a meeting of the township, I think it's a fair point. The difficulty I see with this is that if we're not really the ones that are in control and providing information, what we're really doing is providing probably a less effective alternative to people attending the meetings in West Orange, where opinions can be heard. But if what we would have to do is hear from what we have, we can provide the limited scope of control that we have over the project. But we could also take resident concerns and draft correspondence. But once again, I would like to hear from Mr. Aloya before making any agreement to that and how that would work. But I appreciate your advocacy, and I appreciate you attending and participating in the meetings, especially in West Orange. This is a project that has major implications, not just for that neighborhood, but for the entirety of the town with the runoff. And it is a major issue that we be looking into. So I don't mean to not provide maybe more specifics, but we do want to hear from the attorney in closed session on that. So would anybody else like to jump in? Councilman?
Just one more item was, I believe, we wanted Verona's engineers to review the project and analyze the potential effects of Verona. To ask Mr. Diarco if there's anything.
They're waiting for the DEP reviews of the applications rather than us reviewing that application, which is kind of a moot point in advance of the DEP. So the engineer is aware of that project. He was put on notice already relative to that project, and they're monitoring the application going down to the DEP.
And I did have a past, I mentioned last time around, I did also have a past one-on-one conversation with the mayor of West Orange regarding this project. My understanding is, and this is what I've seen written publicly, that any pass-through or traffic exit on that side would be reserved for emergency access only and would be gated. However, the challenges with those is that, again, if it's not within our jurisdiction, someone can always make a change to that later. But I would argue that that would be a very important point as to whether or not, there was any traffic outlet permitted through there.
Absolutely.
And there's my comment for that.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Two additional points. One was there was an inquiry made about how we organize ourselves. So the council must act at an open public meeting. And that's what you're attending this evening. So when we are organizing or when we're having deliberative discussions, it must be done in the context of one of these noticed open public meetings. What's also been raised this evening is that we are all liaisons to various different commissions and boards that are comprised of residents. Some of those commissions and boards also address some of the concerns that have been raised by residents here this evening. So, for example, I am liaison to the Recreation Advisory Committee. There's been discussion about Everett Field this evening. If residents want to attend a Recreation Advisory Committee meeting, those are open to the public and they can provide comments at that time. Residents have come. But oftentimes our board meetings are very underutilized by the community. So here you have a very organized group of residents that are concerned about items that are addressed by either our Traffic and Safety Committee or might be addressed by our Environmental Commission, which has made very strong recommendations on stormwater management before. I am a former liaison to the Environmental Commission, but I think that, you would find that that would be a robust discussion that you could participate in as a resident, right? Because they are all open to the public. With regard to your stormwater management concerns, I am 100% like-minded with you, because absolutely removing all of those trees is going to increase the stormwater flow down to the Peckman, and that is not going to just impact that neighborhood on the hill. It's actually going to affect many other residents that live along the Peckman that deal with frequent flooding. And you are absolutely correct. Everybody in this town has humidity in their basement, even if it's not sump pump worthy yet. But we have several residents that have multiple sump pumps and then still have a lot of challenges with their basements. This problem is only increasing. And with the DEP's rules, hopefully their scrutiny will be a strict scrutiny. And I do think it is prudent right now from an engineering resource standpoint to await the deficiency review from DEP and make sure that our engineers are looking over that, because our engineers do bill the township for services. So we want to be prudent with the financial impact to residents. But we also want to make sure that we're reviewing the most accurate information. So I think it's great that you guys are continuing to come to the council meeting. And I just wanted to make sure you were aware of these other avenues where you could have your voice heard. And there are definitely like-minded residents that can help amplify your voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Anybody else? Thank you, Mayor.
Just say something quickly. Mr. Axelrod, I do agree with everything you said. I don't know if there is a change of plans, but I know on the original plans, I did see them. There was no access for everyday vehicles, as the councilman said. It's going to be an emergency vehicle entrance. If that could be stopped. Unfortunately, this is one of West Orange's interveners with the whole affordable housing wave that we went through. So I think it happened to Verona. There's a couple that we had to approve. So I think the best way to deal with it is how all of you are doing. I didn't attend the last meeting at the Fells Country Club, but I was at the first one. Seems like you're very well organized. Keep getting emails, keep talking to more residents. We will do whatever we can. But as the mayor said, we need to talk with council before we act on it.
Councilwoman McGrath.
And all of my colleagues had great points, and I will just add, I'm holding out hope that when the New Jersey DEP reviews these plans, they are scaled back and changed significantly, because I definitely share the concern about the steep slope and the water retention. And we will tackle every one of these pieces as we get to it. I look forward to our legal counsel's advice to us as a governing body. But I appreciate how organized the residents are. I look forward to hearing, I would love to hear recaps of West Orange meetings that you attend, and developments as you hear them. If you want to email the entire council, I think that would be really helpful, and our town manager, so that we are kept abreast of what you're learning from the West Orange side as well. And we appreciate your activism. So, you know, we'll see how this progresses, and let's hope the New Jersey DEP takes a really stern look at this project and, you know, make sure that there is something that is built that is appropriate.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we are going to move on to hearing adoption or amendment of ordinances. The next item on the agenda is an ordinance on second reading. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of ordinance 2023-39 into the record?
Capital ordinance appropriating $50,000 from the Water Sewer Capital Improvement Fund for the assessment of the water and sewer rate study in the Township of Verona in the County of Essex, New Jersey.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would somebody please move the ordinance?
So moved.
Seconded. Okay, motion by Councilman Holland, second by Councilman Roman. Now is the time for public hearing on ordinance 2022-39. Madam Clerk, would you please read the public participation statement?
Anyone wishing to address an item that is scheduled for a public hearing, please raise your virtual hand if you're attending Zoom, and you may do so by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in by phone, please press *9. If you are in person, please push the lectern. When you are recognized and advised you're unmuted, please clearly state your name and township for the record. You'll have 4 minutes to address the council on just this item, and there'll be no cross dialogue during the public hearings. You're not required to provide your street address, but if you do, these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel, and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. After everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the public hearing will be closed for that item, and the council and/or administration may address your comments and or questions before the vote is called. Please avoid repeating items previously discussed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Anybody in the room care to comment on ordinance number 2023-39? Anybody on Zoom? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment on this ordinance only. Is there any council discussion? Councilwoman Brett.
I would just like to thank Councilwoman Holland for all of her expertise in helping us get to this moment. I know that when we talked about when we had to increase our water rates dramatically, she really advocated for this rate study. And at the time, while I voted for the rate increase, I said I would not vote for another one unless we did a rate study. So I'm really happy that we are at this point, though a little apprehensive of what we may find out. So I want to thank Councilwoman Holland for her leadership, and I'm really excited to and thank the township manager for finding the right vendor so that we could actually accomplish this very comprehensive rate study. Thank you.
Any other comment from the council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman.
Yep.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor ordinance 2023-39 passes 5-0, and it will be published according to law.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on the agenda is an ordinance on second reading. Again, Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of ordinance 2023-40 into the record?
Fixing the salary and compensation of the deputy manager for the 2023 calendar year.
I would like to move this ordinance. Would somebody like to second? Thank you. Okay, second by Councilwoman McGrath. I'm going to now open for the public hearing on ordinance 2023-40. Madam Clerk, the same public comment statement applies. Is there anybody in the room who would care to comment? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Any council discussion?
Say that it's excellent to be able to have this position and such a well qualified candidate. I'm very glad we're able to bring to the town. So,
Councilman?
I will just say that we have a tremendous amount of projects in motion currently, as well as those on deck. So there will not be a shortage of work for the incoming deputy manager. But I am very optimistic that this will be very positive, and I'm very excited about the skill set of this professional. So yeah, I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you. I would like to say that I'm really glad we created this deputy manager position, that we have such a well-qualified candidate who will be coming in. Local government is really complicated. And I think the last title that we had for a former employee was creative at the time, but we definitely have evolved, and as government has gotten more complicated, I think it's clear that as a municipality, we need a manager and a deputy manager. So I'm very enthusiastic to support. I supported the creation of the position and now this salary. So it's exciting to move forward.
Thank you, Councilman, and I'll conclude by saying that I reflect all my colleagues' comments, and it's wonderful to have such a qualified applicant or qualified new hire. For the public's edification, it's important to note as well that our new deputy manager is also a professional engineer, is licensed in the state of New Jersey, and with all of the many projects that are going on, a lot of the engineering going on, and I don't know if I can say his name, Brian, because since can I actually? He hasn't started yet, so he doesn't.
You can say his name.
Okay, all right. So just making sure. I mean, he's been introduced, but
I think we did it.
but I appreciate Mr. O'Sullivan agreeing to use his engineering license for the purpose of assisting the town. It matters, and this will help us immensely as well. And I think that will be worth every penny of what the investment that we're making in our deputy manager role. Any other comment?
I agree with all the other ones.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome aboard.
And
Let's vote first.
Madam Clerk, let's call the roll before Mr. O'Sullivan runs out.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath.
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy.
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, ordinance 2023-40 passes 5-0, will be published according to law.
Excellent. Congratulations. All right, we're going to be moving on to proposed ordinances. Items on first reading. The next item on the agenda is marked as H1. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of this ordinance into the record?
A bond ordinance providing for the improvements at the Lynn Drive well in and by the Township of Verona in the County of Essex, New Jersey, appropriating $4 million therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $4 million bonds or notes of the township to finance the cost thereof.
Thank you. Would somebody please move the ordinance?
So moved.
Motion by Councilwoman McGrath, second by Councilwoman Holland. We're in discussion on this ordinance. For the public's purpose, we've had extensive discussion on these items at multiple meetings, so it doesn't look like I don't want anybody to think we're spending $4 million without talking about it. We usually don't have comment on the first reading, but just for the purpose of that, it is a big ticket item, just to clarify for the public. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath.
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy.
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, H1 will be number 2023-41. It will be published according to law. A public hearing will be held on October 16th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item on the agenda is another ordinance on first reading. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of ordinance H2 into the record?
Bond ordinance providing for the improvements at the Fairview Avenue well in and by the Township of Verona in the County of Essex, New Jersey, appropriating $5 million therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $5 million bonds or notes of the township to finance the cost thereof.
Somebody please move the ordinance.
So
Motion by Councilman Roman, second by Deputy Mayor McAvoy. Any discussion on this item?
One brief comment, if I may. We had some public requests that bear reiterating, that asked us to do some financial analysis on whether there is positive ROI or not of doing our own water production. I'm not saying that it's a deciding factor one way or the other. There are certainly a lot of reasons to have our own water supply, but that was a request to, to look at the cash flow effects of this versus purchasing water for completeness. I asked that done.
Thank you, Councilwoman Holland.
That's all I'm saying.
No, I'm gonna ask a question and actually double down on it, and then you can answer both of us. So, $9 million, notwithstanding any loan principal forgiveness that we could be receiving from the iBank. It's certainly not gonna cover the $9 million. So in addition to doing the financial analysis that Councilman Roman just reiterated from the prior meeting, I think it's really important for the township, in collaboration or, concurrently with the rate study or possibly as an outcome of the rate study, to really consider the different levers that are available to the township with public-private partnerships or other structures with regard to the significant amount of debt that we're in. So if we're looking at a financial analysis, just purchasing all of our water isn't really the only option available to us. There are different options that could also ultimately cover the cost of this $9 million bond. So it is something to consider and for the administration to advise us on. We have not received any advice on that topic, to my understanding. And so, if we are going to be looking at other financial options, let's put them all on the table. And I would very much welcome seeing that.
And we can have that for next meeting, Mr. Chair.
I don't know.
A comprehensive study of everything about our utility operations in
We can move quickly around.
We're not technically on vacation, so.
No,
Mr. Sullivan will do it. He's right here.
Oh, so he still is working, so he can get it done.
Still working.
we don't even have the rate study completed. You have to appreciate that it's all interrelated with your asset management plan and your rate study and your rate structures, how you're recouping these investments. So I will say on your behalf that it was not my expectation that you would be delivering this more comprehensive request to the council within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But I would if we are going to be considering purchasing all of our water, I would very much long term, instead of proceeding with these capital improvements, I would like to see a more robust financial analysis.
Yes. The short answer is yes. We do need the study that we just commissioned. That'll get done. You're purchasing your water now from Passaic Valley Water, and if you kept up with the news on Passaic Valley Water, they have to address PFAS in their systems too, which means that's the same kind of investment we had to make. There is a $2 million forgiveness that we are getting on principal. And as of this morning, from my understanding from a meeting I was on this morning, representing the mayor at the mayor's meeting with the county executive, the federal government has just released $6 billion for water infrastructure improvements, which are supposed to go to cities and iBanks. But wherever that goes, we're waiting for that to happen. That was part of preliminary discussions I think I had in month 3 when I got here, was in the pile of issues we're dealing with, was talking to one company relative to the potential sale of our wells to them to manage. There was an informal discussion getting to the root of the fact of all the improvements would have to be made anyway, and the township would be tacked on your bill. If they said something different to me, I would have been in earlier talking to you about that kind of an option, but nothing's for free. You would have to still clean up the wells, the PFAS, and then you can go into your next discussion if you even wanted to have that. And you have a number of communities that you're the water purveyor to, which makes for additional complications of your delivery of water or options with the additional options that may be available to you, but nothing comes for free. And that's the manager's summary. As soon as we get to the cost analysis by the CFO and the bond counsel, and we get the rate study, which includes your water and sewer, and I've asked for that to be separate. So you have both pieces.
It's from, I'll also mention PFAS, there's still ongoing litigation of potential cost recovery there as well, and there's
Thank you.
right, there's a lot of factors that go into this, and philosophically and from an emergency management and continuity of service point of view, we've lost all of our Passaic Valley supply in the past, and only had our wells to rely on. So clearly there are benefits to the community in being able to produce our own water locally, but still, this is something we've been asked about. We need to be analytical about the moves that we make. Like I said, it's not everything is about positive ROI on certain decisions, but it's nice to enter into projects knowing why and being able to set financial parameters based on those. So I still would appreciate at least just seeing some information.
Yes. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamburo.
Yes.
Mayor H2 is numbered 2023-42, will be published according to law. A public hearing will be held on October 16th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. We have two sets of minutes. We have contract authorization with Marziti Falcon and the one with New Gen Strategies and Solution, as well as an escrow refund on that. We have no licenses or permits. Would any? No, yes,
And Mayor, we can add if you,
I was going to introduce that as new business
thank you.
since it's not
I just
on
didn't
the
want to get.
agenda. No, it's not. It can't be part of the consent agenda because it wasn't put out before. So I will introduce that in new business.
Mayor,
Yes,
I would like
There you
to
go.
pull K1 from consent.
thank you. Okay. I will hear a motion to adopt the consent agenda, then we'll have public comments. So moved. All right, the motion by the deputy mayor to adopt the consent agenda with the exception of A1. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Roman. At this time, I'll hear public comment on any consent agenda items only. The same public comment applies, but only for the consent agenda. Anybody in the room? Mr. Molinaro? No? You're good?
Go back this week.
All right, anybody on Zoom? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment on the consent agenda and open for any council discussion on the consent agenda. Just items J1 and 2 and K2 through 4. Seeing none? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamburo.
Yes.
Mayor, resolutions K2, 3, and 4 will be numbered 162, 163, 164.
I'll at this time hear a motion to adopt resolution K1.
Mayor, I believe there were questions on K1, so.
I was gonna
Move.
So you move it and then you have a
Okay.
discussion, so we gotta move it for discussion first.
I'll move it.
Okay, motion by Councilman Roman, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy seconds, discussion, Councilman?
Sure, so the councilwoman had a discussion with me earlier with regard to the status of the litigation that this firm's working on. And I'd like to provide that just so the council has a full update on the status in closed session because it's litigation. And then we'll come out after closed session today and then vote on the resolution in the public portion after closed session.
So we'll be taking action, official action.
That's correct.
Is there any opposition to doing that? The council. So at this point, I'll hear a motion to table this until after executive session.
I'll move to table.
So moved. Second, show of hands, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion is carried. All right, we do have an addendum on tonight's meeting. This is a resolution offering $12,190,000 in general improvement bonds for sale. Mr. Diarco, would you care to elaborate on?
It's the sale of your combination of notes.
So the public edification, this is already spending that has been approved. And we fund them on short-term notes and then we sell them as bonds after the notes expire. So we're just selling those. And we did receive an analysis from the chief financial officer regarding this as well, with recommendations of the CFO and the bond counsel. I'll hear a motion on to adopt item M1. So motion is by Councilman Roman, the second by Councilwoman McGrath. Is there any discussion from the council? I'll hear a public comment on this before we have council discussion, since it's an addendum. I'm going to open for public comment just on the addendum only. Same public comment statement applies, but we are only discussing M1, which is the bond sale. Anybody in the room? Anybody on Zoom? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment on M1, council discussion. Councilman Roman.
Thank you to our CFO for providing analysis and advice on this bond sale.
It was good analysis. I second that.
When we, for those of us that were on the council, when we voted for this purchase, I know at the time I said this is probably gonna be one of the biggest votes that we ever make. And I think surely, since we're reflective on the comments earlier from the public on what's going on in West Orange with the development, I think we made a great choice to save this land from high density development. But it was costly. And now we have to finance it. And, you know, we do have a ballot question in November for the public, which will help additionally with the open space financing in our community. So this was a great purchase, but now it's time to put out the fund.
Yes, it is. And we should all go and remember to enjoy the beauty of those properties.
Yes.
What they saved us from potentially having in large scale developments, these along the same lines of what is being discussed and objected to in West Orange right now.
Yeah.
Any further discussion from the council on the addendum? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy.
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor M1 will be numbered resolution 2023-165.
We are now going on to new and unfinished business. I am going to introduce a motion to accept the award of this is a resolution that was made available for the council. Unfortunately, it was not on the addendum by 12 o'clock. However, the council is required to act on this before the 30th. Otherwise, we could forego $67,514.66 in funding. So I'm going to read the resolution for the public. Accepting the award of a 2022 Federal Emergency Management Agency Assistance of Firefighters Grant in the amount of $67,514.66. Whereas the Township of Verona has been awarded an Assistance of Firefighters Grant in the sum of $67,514.66 from the Federal Emergency Management Agency for the purpose of protecting the health and safety of the public and first responder personnel against fire and fire-related hazards. Whereas this grant will help fund the purchase of turnout gear and other necessary equipment. Whereas the township is required to provide a 5% match of $3,375.74. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Verona in the County of Essex, New Jersey, that the Township of Verona is hereby authorized to accept this grant in the amount of $67,514.66, with the township providing additional funds in the amount of $3,375.74. Be it further resolved, Township Manager, Municipal Clerk, and any other officer deemed appropriate hereby authorized to execute any and all documents necessary to accept this grant. Their motion to adopt this resolution.
So moved.
The motion by Deputy Mayor McAvoy. I will second the motion. And at this point, I'll open for public comment on this item only. Anybody in the audience? Chief Tedesco, did you want to come fill us in on a little about the project? You don't have to. Since you're here, we'd love to bring you in. Coming to the lectern is Fire Chief Tedesco, who was kind enough to walk me in today to the meeting.
Yeah.
10, 11. Going for capital investment.
We appreciate that, and so does the public. Any questions from the council for the chief or the township manager? I'm gonna close public comment if there's no other public comment first. Okay, public comments closed,
Yeah.
Councilman?
So I just want to clarify, this is, I know our former employee, Steve Neal, this was his labor of love trying to get this grant, right? So it came through?
He worked with the fire department and Millennium Strategies, our grant writers, a great team. They
Yeah.
got this all together. The fire department's piece is so critical of telling exactly what they need.
Yeah.
It just worked out great.
Okay, great. I hope he's listening, or if someone tells him that we got this grant, I'm sure he's gonna be thrilled. Okay, thank you.
And it's a wonderful problem to need more equipment when we have new members. That is something that we can always address, and I'm happy for that, and I look forward to seeing it all when it comes in. Any further council discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes,
Councilman Roman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy.
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, the resolution will be number 2023-166.
Okay. Thank you. And we're gonna move on to our other items of new business. The first being discussion to amend chapter 5, article 9 of the Township Code, Department of Community Services. Mr. Darko, would you care to start us off?
Thank you, Mayor. It's a basic restructuring of your recreation department. Previously, the director was the director, head of the health section of your department, and also the recreation section of your department, and chair of the Recreation Commission. The ordinance really restructures your department so that the director is the director over the entire department. You'll then have a supervisor of health section that's in the human services end. We'll have a supervisor of the recreation, and the chair of the Recreation Commission will come from the commission itself. It's basically, it's an organizational flow that is provable and recommended.
Does any member of the council have any questions or comments on this item?
I do.
Councilwoman?
So you're proposing a single ordinance that would be amending multiple existing provisions in our code, correct?
Yeah, it was actually relatively easy because there are 3 positions.
Mm-hmm.
And the first position said, you know, you're gonna be the director. And then the second position said, there's a director of health services who will be the first director.
Mm-hmm.
And the third position said, there's a director of whatever the other
Recreation.
who is the top director also. So all you did is you removed that second description. So you technically could keep it the same way and have the same person appointed to all 3 positions again.
Mhm.
Or you can do it the way the manager plans on doing, which is having a director who oversees 2 supervisors and has more of a natural pyramid.
So that's the org chart part, but Mr. Diarco also referenced restructuring of the rec committee, because right now you have a rec committee ordinance that's separate from the org chart. And the rec committee ordinance specifically identifies the director of community services as the chair of that committee. And the statement was that you would then restructure the rec committee so that they can elect from among themselves to have perhaps a chair and a secretary to keep
That's
minutes.
not addressed in this order.
Okay, so could we address that in this ordinance?
We can certainly address it, but not in this ordinance.
Great.
So you would
That
have
would
to
be,
separately
that would
then.
be, yeah, that'd be the rec ordinance.
Okay, so it's not one ordinance addressing multiple sections of the code, you would do 2 separate ordinances. Okay. But that would be considered concurrent with this reorg.
And that's literally how all your other committees are.
Yes,
That's the way it
absolutely.
should be.
If we are going to be opening the rec ordinance, though, I would just mention, and I think it's like there's some inconsistencies with a couple of it, where the liaison is identified as a member of the committee. I'm not sure if I typically should be counted as quorum as a liaison, but I don't know if that's something to consider.
And they'll have Brian.
Yeah, look at it.
Any other questions, comments on this reorganization? Would the council be amenable to hearing this on first reading at our next meeting?
Yeah.
Fine with me.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Yarko, so be done. All right, moving on to our township planner discussion. We did hear, we had a special meeting to discuss our township planners. We did request additional information from those planners. Any council discussion on this item? Okay. Mr. Darko, did you want to give any insight on the additional information we received from the planners?
My understanding, they did respond, it went into the clerk, you received it, and it's a decision that needs to be made by the council.
Okay.
Not the one that's selecting the plan.
This is the most silent I've heard the council ever, so I will lead us in a little bit. I think at this point, we did hear from 3 firms. What we need at this point to authorize the manager to hire a firm is consensus on which firm that we would like to hire. If there's anybody from the council would like a recommendation on said firm, and we can have a discussion and this all vote on that.
Sure, I'll kick it off. So I will say that I was not able to attend the special meeting due to scheduling conflicts, but I did review the recording and I did review the responses that were provided. I'm also grateful for the opportunity to have worked with each of these firms, you know, as a council member and seen their work product. I will say for myself that I think DMR was, you know, excellent, and I would strongly recommend them.
Any other comments?
I can
Deputy Mayor?
lend my comments here. I'd like to first thank these 3 firms for their work and their presentations to us and their follow-up and the information they gave us. Looking at all their information, we talk about how important this is to get moving on. So I looked at timelines and some of them were pretty similar, but I just felt that because of H2M's experience doing the master plan, I felt that they would be, of the 3, the most efficient when it comes to creating a plan and redoing some of our zoning ordinance. I don't want to get into what we have to do there, whatever, but I thought they would be best because they have the knowledge of Verona and they were very involved with the public when they did the master plan. So I would strongly suggest that we kind of go towards H2M. But DMR was a close second for me.
Councilman Roman?
I've looked a lot, and since we've worked with several of these firms, I've looked at sort of past work product, and what I really look at is whose product is the most insightful and most keyed to the town. That's really been my concern, is ultimately who gets Verona and what we're trying to accomplish here, and I would say H2M kind of wins on that regard for me. They all seem like they're well qualified firms. All of them some work for us. So it was actually very challenging to try and weigh the merits of them. They did good presentations, but that was sort of my deciding factor, was past work product. And I really, I've liked what we saw through the master plan process.
Councilman?
Thank you. This was a really tough decision. Again, all of the firms had great presentations, and in ways I want to hire all of them, and I hope at some point we do have a chance to work with all of them on different projects. But I have to tell you, I was really blown away by DMR. They came with a really concise, coherent plan right off the bat at our special meeting. They came with a point of view. I thought it was great. It's exactly what we need. I almost was like shaking with excitement. I was like, oh, this would be wonderful if we could hire them and just have such a clear start to in particular, what we need to do with Bloomfield Avenue. I also thought they had a very strong follow-up memo. I think that, time is of the essence and our time is really valuable. I think we need a firm that has that right communication style. And I think I will, disagree slightly with Councilman Roman. I think DMR has given us some great work products. In fact, I still have their March 7th memo here that they had sent us on a variety of zoning changes, which I thought was really well done. And so, again, all these firms are great, but I think they really get it. And it would be wonderful to have them work on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that leaves me to make my comments as the room comes closer here. I saw DMR and H2M as the clear best candidates for this. And after the presentation and the written product, when I reviewed it, I had very much the same approach as Councilman Roman in looking at some of the past products, including that which I obviously had on the council, and what the value that we have gotten for that product for the money as well was a big component of my decision making. And I'm not going to necessarily speak on specific memoranda or whatever like that and my feelings on it because I had spoken about this before. But what I looked at is this process needs to start right away. We are behind as far as I'm concerned. So in order to move this process along, my opinion is to move forward with H2M as our planner. They did do the master plan, and I think they can pivot very easily to doing our zoning code, and I think they understand what we are looking for in a zoning code. I think they were the group that had the most knowledge of Verona. And so instead of playing catch up, we can move forward and implement the master plan that was really thoughtfully put together by our planning board and the planner, and move forward with them. So my opinion is my first choice would be H2M, my second choice would be DMR, and I would not choose to hire Neglia as any choice. Any other comments from the council?
I'm here.
There was just a second element of it. I don't know whether we want to actually make a, we should probably make a decision as to how we want to approach things, maybe their first work project, whether we point them in a targeted area first, or whether we try and do the entire zoning ordinance, en masse, whether we want to save that for after, making a final decision and going to contract, but that would ultimately be the first thing that we need to do is come up with a scope of work and task.
Well, and I tend to agree. I think that's an important way of moving forward. We had talked about trying to do a couple pieces at once. So the Bloomfield Avenue area first, and some other areas that we've identified as potentially needing some revision on zoning. There are a couple properties in town that have come up. We have, as a council, said that we're not going to spot zone as council. So in order to really do this well, it's my opinion that we start to have them move forward with the entire code, and include what we want as part of it. I think doing it piecemeal, this is just my opinion, and folks are free to disagree with me, but I think doing it piecemeal does not allow us to look at the big picture of what the code is going to be, and puts us in a situation where we might have to revise zoning as things come forward. So I'm more in favor of doing the whole code, which is why I had an opinion toward H2M, because I feel that they can do this more quickly on the entirety. But I know there was discussion about doing certain pieces at a time, but since Bloomfield Avenue is such a big part of the project anyway, for them to do that, that is probably a majority, if not a super majority of the work that they're going to do. So it seems that the other pieces would naturally fall into doing after the Bloomfield Avenue, and we even talked about expanding at Bloomfield and Pompton, which is probably the two main roads, and after everything else in town is not as significant. But I agree with the councilman's opinion that we should provide some direction on that. That is my thought. If anybody else has a thought on there.
Well, I think we have to obviously hire a planner first, so we have at least another 2 weeks and we can all think about it and maybe have a talk about this, put it on the agenda for new business or
Really, yeah, that's
for
kind of where
the next meeting. Yeah, let's discuss it next meeting and do an outline of what we want from.
I think that's kind of really where I wanted to go with it. We don't have to get called on this right at the dais right now. So
Well, are we gonna take a vote?
Well, I don't think we take a vote now. We would need to have a resolution at the next meeting that includes the amount of money that we're putting aside for it, and all the rates in the contract and all of that, Mr. Aloya, correct? And we basically done a straw vote to inform the manager of the preference of the majority of the council, at least, so that he can move forward, and we would hear this, and then we can, once at the same meeting that we approve the retention of that firm, we can talk about what we want to do as well. If and anybody's free to comment on it now, as I did. I think I would discuss now for the sole purpose of, I think that might help to inform and start that conversation so that the planner can be ready to go, but I'm also happy to do that. I don't see any further discussion.
It'll help Brian and I to draft an agreement for them on scope of service.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to have the discussion now. But I can't force anybody else to speak, so.
I can understand, there's two ways that you can look at this. I mean, we know we don't like the concept of spot zoning. We've said this several times over that we don't intend to do that. We just got out of a review, so it makes the most logical sense to do the whole thing at once. There is a counter argument to say that there are, potential opportunities that may come up to us. But it's so rare that we do an actual reevaluation that it's probably better that we do the entire ordinance at once. I like the concept of having it be internally coherent and consistent, and there being a larger theme to it. It's just one of these things where I think we need to make a definitive decision and statement as to how we're going to do this, because there are always people that come to us for areas in need of redevelopment, for other discussions, and we would probably need to have a policy statement basically that until this is done, we're not going to entertain any spot zone.
But I think also doing one would allow the public to comment on the one plan, the one zoning code that we have, versus doing it piecemeal and having multiple different times for public comment, which could lead to people actually missing the comment on the area they want to discuss on. Councilwoman McGrath.
So looking at H2M's memo, are you talking about approach 1 or approach 2? You're advocating for approach 1?
I would advocate to move, I'll pull up the memo. I can't remember which one was ordered in which way, but I would advocate.
One single amendment to the town?
Yes, yeah, that would be, thank you. Correct. That would be approach 1.
Mr. Mayor, for me.
Yes.
I don't see any downside to doing the entire zoning ordinance at the same time, because there aren't going to be that many changes to many of the zones. We've all said numerous times we're focusing on the Bloomfield Avenue corridor. To me, there's actually two sections of that. We have the town center and the extended town center, and maybe even a third from Fairview Avenue all the way up. So, I mean, we're going to do those areas. Those are really the major areas that we're going to be spending, I think, most of our time discussing. And that's going to be where people are going to have differing opinions on. There could be other areas that we've talked about in the past. Certainly Pompton Avenue is going to be another one. But I think between those areas of focus, I think that's going to be 80 to 85% of our conversation. There are things in our zoning ordinance in the R50, R60, R70, R100 zone that we're going to be able to tweak over the years. I even have a list of some things that we should change. I think our planning board attorney has a list of things that we should change in there. So I think those are going to be rather simple areas. So to do the whole thing, if you want my opinion tonight, is I don't think will be all that different than or would take all that much more time than doing just the corridors that we've talked about.
And then we could potentially reduce professional fees as well by not having as many meetings. They're showing up and going back and forth. Any other comments, Councilman?
I guess my concern is, we really need to get to the analysis of Bloomfield Avenue in terms of it needing to be an area of need of redevelopment. So if I'm reading this memo correctly, or rehabilitation, excuse me, or and then subsets maybe So we're gonna change the zoning code first, and then we would have a second project to look at that. I mean, that's what I'm hearing you advocate.
Well, that would be incorporated into.
Well,
our
the
discussion.
approach one is a single amendment to the township zoning code. So I just want to get clarification, because it's my opinion that we need to do the analysis on Bloomfield Avenue, you know, as expediently as possible. I think that's where I'm confused from the approach they've laid out. So if someone can clarify, that'd be great.
I mean, part of areas in need of redevelopment is that they are overlay zones in which the underlying zoning still applies, is valid. So my challenge with, you know, trying to do an area in need of redevelopment or rehabilitation and then amending the underlying zoning thereafter is that's sort of putting the cart before the horse. You know, it may not be, you know, we may feel like there's an opportunity we want to jump on here, but in terms of good planning and good legislating, you want the majority of your zoning actions to take place in the ordinance, not in areas in need of redevelopment. If there's something that we feel is so, you know, really needs to go into an area in need of redevelopment, why is it not part of base zoning for the zone?
Well, again, we had another firm, you know, DMR did lay out another approach. That's why I thought it was very attractive on, you know, you don't even have to fix the underlying zoning. You can just do that overlay zone. But if the majority doesn't want to go with them, I'm just concerned that, you know, we'll be a year out before we even look at, you know, that as a critical economic piece to help us drive this town forward.
I mean, hold on, Councilman Hall, just.
Thank you. I have to say that I share Councilwoman McGrath's point of view about DMR. I thought they presented a very cogent and very creative solution that would move this along more expeditiously. I will say if the majority is interested in proceeding with H2M, your preference for approach one is actually contrary to H2M's own recommendation. So H2M, for efficiency purposes, recommended their option two, which is to look at the town center, extended town center and Pompton area first. And their point for that is because of efficiencies, because if you're taking it all together, if there are any objections in this process, this could be well over a year before it moves forward. And then this business corridors, where we have an opportunity for enhancing revenue and therefore minimizing the impact on our residents for property tax increases, but instead like building businesses, including rateables, that would all be delayed. So your preferred vendor here is recommending the alternative approach. So I just wanted to flag that for the record here. But again, it was my preference to move forward with DMR.
Mr. Diarco, could we invite H2M to come so we can answer questions in the next meeting about the approach? I think that if we articulated what we were looking for, that they might be able to assess that within the recommendation, probably adopt what we're asking them to do.
I'll just, Mr. Mayor, just for the record, approach number one from H2M was 8 to 9 months to complete this project.
But then it goes on to say that it could be extended because of objections.
Yep.
Councilman Roman.
I'll just respond that that is a fair point, and I was actually going to mention the exact same thing, that H2M was in favor of doing the bifurcated approach. So thank you for bringing that up.
Okay. Mr. Diarco, you have a plan of action moving forward.
Well, no problem.
Thank you, and we'll invite them for the next meeting. All right, wonderful. Next item on the agenda is our zoning office coverage. I will start this one and ask Mr. Diarco to jump in. We've had several residents reach out to the council, to the manager, to anybody they could reach out to with concerns about the coverage of our zoning office. For the public's awareness, we had a zoning officer who left, and then we needed a temporary zoning officer because otherwise we couldn't have any construction projects happen in town. So we retained Boswell Engineering, who was our township engineer, to provide those services. We then hired another zoning officer who left after a short time on the job, and we are now back using Boswell for those same services. We are in the process of hiring another zoning officer to potentially reduce this, but the question that came up, and I had sent Diarco a detailed request for information, which he provided the documents, but was bills for the escrow that residents are paying for permitting versus what the town is paying. And unfortunately, the way the bills are presented is they're not presented in the same format. So it is actually very difficult to see if both what residents are paying versus what the town is paying for the same escrow, for the same work. The question that I came up with in speaking to residents was, would they be paying the same amounts for these projects if we had an in-house zoning officer? And that's really the only question that, I think that's the first question that we need answered, because we hadn't seen concerns of this level about escrow fees and various other things until the engineering company came in charging $170 an hour for services. So I will give you the opportunity to provide some insight on this.
Some of my comments will be in closed session for specific reasons. But generally, one of the issues that, and I've been meeting with residents. My last meeting, I told the engineers exactly the same thing. I need to see clearly that the residents are paying the rate, the municipal rate, not private rate. And I'm going to get that and sort through some of the bills. Most of the discussions that I've had with residents, part of what they were doing required engineering. Previously, engineering was approved, and I think you've heard how sensitive the town is relative to flooding and changes in topography and how it affects property. And some of the proposals are done by landscapers or general contractors and not designed by engineers. And unfortunately, some of these changes on properties require engineering plans. They still need to be reviewed by an engineer or township engineer. So we're not going to get around, residents really, we can't get around the fact that we don't employ a full-time engineer, which I wouldn't recommend anyway, although we'll get some insight, which will be helpful to us in the future. But the bottom line is that the designs that are submitted by contractors and or general landscapers need to be done by engineers that their expertise is in the drainage that's affecting and what's being done on properties. And I'm not an engineer, but that's why we have engineers reviewing it. So when an engineer has to review those plans, escrows are put up in advance. Part of the concern that residents expressed is they'd like to know the whole number in the beginning. And I agree. I've told or Boswell in this case, that the township engineer, you need to give them the number in advance, because escrows that are not used are returned. They're on your agenda tonight. Some of them are returned. And I don't think that was explained to the residents. They never went through this before. Previously, projects were approved and none of the approvals were in writing, and they were verbal approvals, and it's not how you can function. Because when properties are affected by work done on an individual resident that affects another resident or downstream, you're going to have major issues and residents' claims against additional residents. So your obligation is to do this properly. If you want to budget and fund all of this for the residents, that's a decision you make, and you'd have to put that in the budget. But the normal course of action is escrow fees. Developers put up escrow fees, whether it's development, single family homes, they're required to put up escrow fees. And if they're used for inspections, et cetera, no problem. Zoning complaints are handled by your zoning officer, and I'll discuss that in closed session. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm going to have to go into closed session on that issue. And there is no charge to the resident for a zoning officer technically to come out. There is a charge for the engineers to go look at plans.
So my question, I think, was one of part of it is to get a breakdown on exactly, because we're getting a bill for zoning services that looks like a lawyer's. You know, for every 10 seconds that, and that's a little hyperbolic, but for a half an hour or 20 minutes or whatever it might be that they're spending on this project and another project, what is the town paying for versus what is the resident paying for out of escrow? That's really my concern, because in looking at these bills, some of them look like we were both paying for them. And that's really what I need addressed.
We're not both paying for them. The resident has to pay for the engineering fee. We get billed for it. And which goes to the escrow, and the escrow pays the engineer.
So
We'll get better billing from them.
So what is the council paying the firm for providing the zoning officer services?
Not the zoning, well, no, yeah, the zoning officer is hired by them too, but we pay for the zoning officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, what needs to be broken down maybe more specifically.
It should be engineering.
Engineering is
Yes,
fine,
right.
Yeah.
And
So-
it gets confused for the residents because it says Boswell Engineering.
And well, also the bill, part of the bill says for zoning services, and then listing the address. And then there's another bill for the engineering services, listing the address. And sometimes the engineers are the same in the zoning office as appear at the residence.
They're separate now. They are
Okay,
separate.
because
They're
that
separate.
it just creates, and I think
I agree.
I'm trying to, in representing the residents, it creates a very confusing and unhappy appearance.
Yeah.
When the person you're talking to about zoning, you're calling them and asking for zoning permit assistance, is now coming to the house and billing your escrow account for engineering services.
Completely understand. As I think one of the meetings I've had, a recent meeting with residents, and I think I've met with 4. And in the timeframe that this happened, over months, and the reason I meet with them personally with the engineer there, so I get a good understanding what their concern is, and we can sort it out and hopefully get it resolved, and most of them have been resolved. Very honestly, the latest one now brought up the billing issue, which I need to clarify, so.
What's wrong?
One of the resident complaints that came to me, which I think was a direct one, maybe just me, and I don't know whether they reached out to anyone else, was expressly related to things that are not engineering, that are zoning matters. Fencing was an example, and that's where I really do sympathize with the resident, because I look at this, I look at the bill that they got, and I feel like they're being charged by the hour for a zoning officer that we would
If it's, and you're right, if it's engineering, it's the only thing that's billed for the escrow. If it's planning, we're paying for. If the zoning, we're paying for the zoning officer that we pay for. That's our responsibility. We had a zoning officer here, and we're getting temporary replacement through the firm.
And my request of the manager's office, and perhaps Mr. O'Sullivan can help with this when he starts, is to look at every bill sent to a resident for services from the engineering firm Boswell, to ensure that our residents are not being billed engineering fees for what we are paying for the zoning office coverage already from the taxpayer coffers. And that's really my significant request, and then we can speak on to the residents about that. I suppose my question, you're talking about a lot of things require engineering. Could a resident there just hire their own engineer instead of having to pay for the township firm? So
They can hire their own engineer to put their plans together, but they still have to be reviewed by the township engineer for approvals.
Councilman?
Yes, I too have been receiving a lot of complaints. I want to thank Mr. DiArco for some conversations we've had, and I'll just reiterate, in addition to some of the things that were already raised, just the importance of clear upfront communication to the resident when they start. I recognize that we have to move forward and get more precise with engineering, especially since we put in, let's face it, a very strict stormwater management ordinance that the residents are, now having to abide by, which is good for the good of all the town. But when you're trying to do a project, it's very complicated. And I think it's that upfront at the intake when the resident first comes in, where we have to set a lot of expectations and have clear, easy to read communications that also reference back to our ordinances. So I would like, just a summary email again on where our ordinances, where all this is spelled out in the ordinance, but then we need that approachable communication from the onset or whoever's doing that intake when someone's coming in saying, oh, I'm doing, a deck, I'm extending my patio, I'm actually putting in drainage to alleviate flooding on my property. And now they're getting caught up in like a lot of engineering review. So I appreciate all the work you've done and what you're going to do to help resolve this. And I also will say, you know, we may need to look in the future on, are there firms out there that do this really well on the resident side? Is that something we should be going out to bid for on just this resident piece, separate from other larger projects? So it's something to consider in the future.
Every meeting I've had with residents have really been helpful. You get a sense of what the frustration is from their piece, which I put direction to the firm about an intake form. Came out of one of my last meetings that we need to detail every piece for the resident, hand it to them, and then there's a whole checklist of what actually the escrows cover. And then the estimate, not piecemealing it, just let them know upfront what this is gonna cost them. And that's where we're at
And
now.
I would appreciate something to them on township letterhead that says,
Yeah.
this is what should not be charged to you as a zoning matter, and this is what you could pay for. And that way, when they get their bill, which are detailed, if they have an issue, what is the procedure for contesting the bill and so on, so we can have this communication. I think going back and looking at all of the bills is a good place to start, because there may be some issues that we can perhaps address for our residents, even the ones who haven't come to us.
Yeah.
It's still our duty to sort of.
We get it better and it doesn't, we don't get more.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, any other items of new business to come before the council this evening? Councilwoman Graf.
So, Mr. Diarco, you had said that we were gonna review some sort of ordinance on lead, but I don't see it in our share drive and I don't see it in our packet. So is that coming for the next meeting? For new business?
It is next. Yeah.
Oh, next
It
meeting.
is, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
Mr. Tom Jacobson and I have interviewed the firms, reviewed 3 of the firms that have applied. We both selected a firm that will be in front of you, and we're gonna have the firm in to answer questions, just in case there's direct questions for the answer. And it is all in accordance with the state requirements for lead inspections and all the fees that are required in that ordinance.
So there'll be an ordinance too.
Yeah.
So there's a vendor recommendation and an ordinance.
And the ordinance prepared by the town attorney. Or even all the time.
Okay. All right.
Can I mention one of that? Sure. Just look at my calendar, I forgot to mention it before. For the residents of town, October 4th, the schools organize a walk to school day. So please be careful driving to school. I know the Verona Environmental Commission is involved with it, and the Verona Police Department shows up a lot of officers there. So just be careful driving around town in the morning on October 4th, and tell your kids to walk to school.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Hearing no further new business, I'm going to open the meeting for public comment on any item from any member of the public. Madam Clerk, would you reread the open public statement, because we've had some movement in the meeting?
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any matter, if you're attending by Zoom, please raise your virtual hand by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in by phone, press *9. If you're attending in person, please approach the lectern. Once you're recognized, clearly state only your name and township of residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address, but if you do, please note these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel, and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. You'll have 4 minutes to address the council. There will be no cross dialogue. After everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the council and or administration may address your comments and or questions. Open.
Anybody in the room? No? All right, on Zoom, we have Mayor Emeritus Ryan. Mr. Ryan. He's still muted.
I'm asking him to.
I think I've unmuted. Can you hear me?
We can, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just would like to start by thanking Councilwoman Holland and Councilman Roman for raising the issue that I think I brought up a couple of meetings ago about the ordinance regarding the wells. I'm a little bit confused, and someone brought up the saying the cart before the horse. I think we just authorized a study of our water and sewer situation. And yet we're going ahead and introducing the ordinance to fix both of the wells. So when they do the study, are they to assume that the wells are going to be fixed, or are they free to do the study without any presupposed conditions? That was one point. And then the second thing, on a totally different matter, Mr. DiArco raised the issue in his report about Pompton and Claremont and some type of a traffic control there. I was wondering if he could elaborate a little bit more on that. This issue goes back about 5, 6, 7, or 8 years when I was still on the council. And, you know, it's about time for us to fish and cut bait on that. I don't care if it's the state, if it's the county, if it's the municipality. That is a very dangerous corner. At a pure self-interest, I live near that intersection. I try to navigate it on many occasions. It's not easy. So if he could give us some type of a timeline on that, I would appreciate it. And the third point, pivoting to your recent discussion, I served many years on the planning board, and I'm currently serving on the zoning board of adjustment regarding the issue of engineering. Part of the confusion, I think, lies in the fact that many of the longtime residents remember when we had a permanent engineer on staff in the form of Mr. Held. And then I also believe that Mike DiCarlo had an engineering license. So I don't think we considered charging people for it. And I recently sat on a board of adjustment meeting where we had some very agitated and upset folks who, you know, wanted some more information on that. I'm happy to hear that Mr. DiArco has been meeting with them. Full disclosure, at the Board of Adjustment meeting, we did encourage people to go and get further clarification from him. So hopefully they did. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Anybody else on Zoom or in the room? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close public comment. I'll allow Mr. DiArco to respond to most of Mayor Ryan's points, but I think the study that we have is for the rates, not studying the system. It's studying how much we're charging for water. And to go to Mr. Ryan's point, what assumption are they operating off of that this is the water rate once our wells are fixed, or is this the current rate? Both.
Let's see, it's both, actually. It's a current rate study. If we say what we're doing with Passaic Valley Water, that's included in the resident rates and where we should be.
Okay.
So
ultimately, within the study, one of the scenarios they would look at would be essentially the capital expense to bring the wells back online, offset by the reduced cost of the water from the wells.
from Passaic Valley.
Right.
Councilman?
Well, ostensibly, they're also looking at our asset management plan, and then they're going to be recommending rate design structures. So it's not just looking at your current rate, what it's going to be. They're going to actually evaluate your rate design and make recommendations on an enhanced rate design. That's what a good rate study should do. So that should be our expectation. And because right now, the way it was presented in prior years from a prior administration was just kind of like almost like balancing a checkbook, and that's not good rate design.
I'll send the proposal again to the council. It was 50 pages, just a very in-depth study, and we'll make it available to the public.
Yeah, you can put on the public site, certainly.
The traffic light.
That's in progress. That was the update.
Yeah, it's done by being done by a developer. Apparently, they've got all their approvals from the DOT. They're paying for that traffic light and assuming it. And one of the questions that came up was first on their permit fees to the state, which we can't give a private developer relief for. And then there was a discussion. In the discussion of the council also expressed concern at that for children crossing, which then lit up a light bulb in my head that maybe possibly I can get a grant from the state for safe routes to schools, which we applied for. If we can get safe routes to school grant, then that'll provide the police officers, which usually it's off-duty officers, and that relieves one one bill on the developer without us providing anything to the developer technically. And if we get the grant, the developer pays for our application process to Millennium. I'm not sure if there was a third question.
The third question was just reflecting the same bus zoning that we discussed. Any other responses to Mayor Emeritus Ryan? Okay, hearing none. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session. We will be taking, or may be taking official action. So we'll resume the public portion of the meeting. The Zoom will be suspended. It'll be muted and the video will be turned off. While we do that, we will turn on the video and the audio once we are back in. And members of the public who are present are welcome to wait outside until the conclusion of that to hear our official action. Okay, we'll take 5 minutes. Actually, I'll entertain the motion now.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Roman, seconded by Councilman McGrath. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll take a 5-minute recess and start up again. We just get the door open.
Okay.
On in.
Everybody,
Could have done that.
Okay,
What happened?
we are reconvening an open session at 10:21 PM.
I apologize. I need to start the Liberty Recorder. But I
And we're just
can't-
gonna
I
wait a
can't
minute
pause
to
that.
start the recorder.
Enough, go. Thank you.
I'm sure that's like proprietary.
You good?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, we have 2 items of action to address. The first is on resolution K1. Is there a motion on resolution K1?
So moved.
Seconded. The motion by Councilman McGrath, the second by Councilman Roman. I am now going to open for public comment on item K1 and K1 only. Is there anybody in the room who would like to comment? Seeing none, is there anybody on Zoom who would like to comment? Seeing one. No. At this point, I'm going to close public comment. Is there any council discussion on resolution K1? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy.
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor K1 will be numbered, resolution 2023-167.
At this time, we have another item that came out of closed session. I'm going to move to approve a release with an employee with the number to be provided later. We did not provide the employee name on the record, but it is on file with the municipal clerk and the manager, and they'll provide the exact employee number later related to how would you like to phrase it, Mr. Aloya?
Just a release and settlement agreement.
Release and settlement agreement. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman McGrath. Is there any once again, open for public comment? I'm going to open for public comment on this, which of course is interesting because the public doesn't know what we're talking about. So I don't see any public comment, so I am going to close public comment on this item. Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath.
Yes.
Councilman Roman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy.
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
At this point, are there any other motions to come before the council?
Motion to close.
Okay. The Councilwoman McGrath has made the motion to adjourn. Is there a second? It's coming from Councilman Roman. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed are welcome to stay here. Good night, everyone.
Reach.